What's up everybody, Doublegoose here with yet another YouTube tutorial. I know it's long in the making and I apologize. I've been telling y'all I'm gonna make this forever and I don't. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and get to it. So what we're gonna be discussing here for this particular tutorial is animation overrides and making a weapon fire. So basically this is going to allow you, the person behind the screen, or whatever you're watching this on, to fire a gun, simulate a gunfire with sounds, and even if you wanted to, you could get a little fancy and make yourself like throw a Kamehameha wave or something like that. This is going to be the basics of animation overrides and having a gunfire, or something similar to that effect. Alright, so what I've already done so far here is I've already gone ahead and thrown a gun on our model. So what we did here is we went over to our hierarchy, took our weapon, and put it in the right hand. So basically, weapon was here, after I added it to the scene, and then I took said weapon, and I moved it on over here, to the right arm. Boom. Now it's attached to the arm here. Now I could also shrink this weapon, and make it more like rifle-sized, but for comedic effect, I felt like I'd rather just make it a giant-ass weapon. So we're going to keep it like this. But anyways, I'm probably not going to add this in the game. I might. You might see me running around with it. So anyways, so we've added the weapon. So now attached to the weapon is a empty game object. So what I've done here is I went ahead and right-clicked in our hierarchy, went to create empty, and created an empty game object. And then I went ahead and renamed it to gunfire. And then what I also did with this is I added a sound to the empty object. So what I've done so far is I went ahead and taken a basic particle system, or particle effect, and I went ahead and added a material to it. So in this case, I went ahead and added just a green tune material to it that's unlit. So that way it changes the default particle from that interesting looking sphere you see whenever you first create your particle. So for example, boom, default particle systems look like this. Went ahead and adjusted it, changed our shape from that to mesh, repositioned it in a 90-degree angle, changed our max particles to 1, changed our simulation speed to 10, and added this material to it. And I actually probably got to pause it so I can throw that on there. That's all I did. And then it basically, and I positioned it in a way so that it's positioned into the nozzle area of the gun. Nozzle, muzzle, whatever you want to call it, area of the gun. Alrighty. Now I also have this 8-bit tank shot noise. I'm going to go ahead and press play so you can hear it. Hopefully you heard that. Play it again. Alright, I assume you heard it. It's basically like an Atari style tank shot noise. Added it in there and I threw it and positioned it on the gun. Now remember, whenever you create or add an audio source to your model, very important, always go over here to your inspector, change your 3D sound settings or your spatial blend from 2D to 3D. 2D's it by default, change it to 3D. If it's 2D, the entire world can hear it. Under your 3D sound settings, change your Doppler level to 0. It defaults to 1. The reason you do this is if you do not do this, when moving your weapon around, that sound effect is going to follow your hand. It's going to make like a warbly noise. So Doppler level, turn that off. Minimum distance, it goes to 1 by default. Maximum distance starts at 500. That's way too big. Nobody in the world, not everybody in the entire world in the game needs to hear you fire your weapon. So change it from 500 to 5 or 3. That's what I usually stick it with. Also, you can try decreasing your volume if things are too loud. I'm not going to worry about that for this tutorial right now. Also, just a heads up, in the newest update of VrChat, they've changed sound settings so that way it kind of defaults the spatial blend to 3D, but also messes with the actual sound effects of your audio source. I don't know if they plan on fixing this. I don't actually know if like enabling the 3D spatial sound by default and uploading it that way changes the effects or things within the SDK. But just be warned about that. In the meantime, I still would highly suggest taking your spatial blend to 3D, adjusting your Doppler level, and your minimum and max distance. Anyways, So we've added that to and positioned them appropriately. Now we want to go ahead and create our animation. One thing I want to mention, I'm not going to go over the basics. I'm going to go over some animation override basics, but there are already several animation override tutorials on YouTube you can watch. I believe one made by Morgus. I'll link it in the tutorial in the description. That's how I learned, and I believe Tupper and a few other people have already developed their own tutorials. So go watch them. They give some detailed information. Tupper's usually very detailed in his tutorials, and I personally learned from Morgus myself because he was the first one to post one. But anyways, so I'll go over some basics, but I won't show you the exact process on getting the animation override assets, things like that, and manually placing each individual one in, because it gets very tedious. And there's already a lot of tutorials on that. Call me lazy in the comments if you want to. Anyways. So, we created our empty game object. I'm going to actually go ahead and set the empty game object and position it next to the weapon. It can cause issues, actually, if it's not positioned in an area with the weapon. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, yeah, no. Position it right here, about where the weapon muzzle is at. And let's delete our game object I've already created. Don't worry about this. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and add everything to the weapon. So we've opened up the hierarchy, or your avatar's hierarchy. Went on down here to the beam rifle that you've added to the right hand or left hand if you're left-handed. And we're going to throw everything, our 8-bit tank shot noise, in the game object with the particle system. Then we're going to go ahead and take that empty game object, which is now not empty because it has the particle system and the sound effect with it, and we're going to throw it in with the hierarchy of our beam rifle or whatever gun that you're using. And then boom, it's on there. Now we're going to go ahead and create the animations. So what we're going to go ahead and do is take our avatar here and we're going to copy it. Control-C, Control-V. If you don't do this, it's going to break the skeletal structure of the model, and you're probably going to have to restart everything from scratch. So one thing I'm also going to go ahead and do is I'm going to disable the high mark, the primary one I'm using here, so that way I don't accidentally mess it up, and I'm going to go ahead and add the animation to our copy. So you're going to go over here to animation. Apparently I've already started creating one. I'm going to go ahead and create new clip, just for the sake of stuff. Go over here to sound and animation, my sound and animation folder. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite this tutorial 8-bit animation. You can rename it down below. I'm going to go ahead and save over. Are you sure you want to overwrite it? Yes, I do. And then there we are. We've got our basic animation dealio ready to go. So now we're going to go ahead and start by adding properties. Adding properties can become very, 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 very tedious. I'm going to go ahead and do the basics of getting the weapon to fire. So I'm going to go ahead and add property. Go to the armature. So this is all basically the hierarchy of our model. This is all the hierarchy of the avatar right now. Add property, go to armature, and keep going down until you find the gun that you put in the right hand or left hand, etc. So boom, there's the beam rifle. Click on it. And then we're going to go ahead and go over here to gunfire. Boom. That is our empty game object. We're going to tell the empty game object to be active. Boom. Now whenever you do this, it's going to go ahead and create a what's this called? A keyframe. It's going to put a keyframe at 0 seconds and a keyframe at 1 minute. We're going to go ahead and take that keyframe that's at 1 minute, and we're going to move it on down here to 1 second. Always make your animation overrides fall within this particular 1 second keyframe. If not, it'll cause issues with the animation override. You could, of course, do this right for emotes, but these are mainly for hand gestures. Anyways. So, we've put down that here. We've told it so that the game object is active. So now what we've done, and this is actually pretty much it, we've told that the minute this game object is active, this game object is going to activate the sound, and it's going to activate the particle effect with it, because it activates the game object. So basically, by taking this by taking this empty game object and going from inactive to active, it activates our 8-bit tank shot noise and our particle system both at the same time. And there you go. That's pretty much it. So make sure when uploading the model, this is inactive. If it's active, the animation override won't work. The animation override is going to activate it for you. And now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go back to our project. I'm going to go to my sound and animations folder. Where did I put it? Tutorial 8-bit. Here it is. I'm going to go to a custom override controller atlas that we've taken from our SDK. Again, multiple tutorials on how to do this already if you don't know how. So go ahead and watch them on the basics of animation overrides. So anyways, going over to custom controller atlas, we take our 8-bit tutorial, go over here. You can also probably copy and paste or duplicate this controller. I have to do this right now. I'm going to go ahead and set it to handgun. So that basically means the minute I use a handgun gesture, instead of doing this, it's going to fire the gun. So it's set to handgun. We're going to go ahead and deactivate this guy because he's pretty much broken at this point. We're going to reactivate our primary guy. And we're going to go ahead and take our custom override controller atlas. We're going to move it from here to our custom standard animation. Boom, there's where our override controller goes. We're going to go ahead and do the same with the sitting animation so you can fire the gun while sitting if you want to. Boom! And that's it. So basically, I'm going to take our camera and I'm going to position it over here just so you get a general idea of how this is going to look. So game object, align with view, boom. So the minute we press play, the minute the animation override is activated on handgun, you're going to see this. Crap, that was a horrible angle. Why did the camera do that? Is this the primary camera? That was an awful angle. I'm going to do that again. Hold on. Game object, align with view. Okay, that's better. There we go. Alright, it's going to look like that. And actually, it looks kind of janky to be honest with you because I didn't really adjust the particle system to fire at a slower kind of a speed. Or at a, I just did 5. Boom. Boom. Okay, so fire it. Blah. There we go. Blah. Every time you activate the override, it's going to make noise. So you could if you say for Vive controllers, the handgun gesture is basically squeezing the 2 buttons that are at your palm area. If you set the animation override to say hand open, it's going to basically fire the gun every time you make this gesture. So bam, 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 bam. Good to go. Upload it, put it up there, get crazy. You can also do some crazy stuff with this. If say we didn't want to do a gun, if we didn't want to do the beam rifle, what we could go ahead and do is take a particle effect and add it to the hand, and we could do the same thing, but say instead of 8-bit noise, you could take a particle effect that you have adjusted to replicate, say, like a Kamehameha wave, and add the sound effect of the Kamehameha wave to the empty game object, add the particle effect to the empty game object, go to your animation, set the game object to activate on the 0 and 1 second mark, make sure it's active for both seconds here, and boom, the minute you activate it, you throw a Kamehameha wave. It's amazing, it's cool, it's awesome. Get funky with it. Anyways, guys, that is it for this particular animation override tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, feel free to give me money. No, I'm joking. I don't have a Patreon. But anyways, throw a comment in the description and in the comment section. Give me a like if you want to. It's up to you. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy. I hope this was helpful. Bye-bye.